Here we go.
All right.
All right. Welcome to the Higher Business Series, Humans versus AI, and why judgment still belongs to humans. Today's conversation is how we think with AI. What happens when efficiency replaces nuance, and what do we lose when machines are asked to do what only people can? I'm Kylee Ingram, the CEO and co-founder of Wiser, and this is a topic we talk about daily, as Wiser is about using AI to surface the right people for decisions, not allowing it to make a decision. So I can't wait to dive in with Jing Hu. Feel free to drop your questions in the LinkedIn comments and we'll post them as they come up. And as I mentioned today, our guest is Jing Hu, an AI journalist and speaker. She documents the mutual adaptation between humans and machines, how each remakes each other. Previously, she spent 8 years in research and then 10 years in building software. Jing brings a rare ability to surface scientific rigor, product realities, and the broader societal impacts of AI. She's here to help us think more deeply about what we should automate, what we shouldn't, and why. This is, as I said, super important to us, so we can't wait to dive in. So thanks for joining us, Jing. I've been reading your second order thinkers, and what I love about it is how grounded it is. There aren't theoretical takes. You're capturing the actual friction between how people think and how AI tends to process. Tell us, I mentioned a little bit about how you got here, but tell us a little bit from your perspective about your background.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Kylee. I really love how we met each other. We actually met each other through the introduction of an AI. So that itself was actually a journey. So I think it's great to be here because I don't often have the chance to speak with this part of the world, of course, and this set of audience. A little bit about me first, so you know, like who am I and why you should watch this. So previously, I spent 8 years in research and then 10 years in building software. I think since my time doing research and even till now, that I still have the habit of reading research itself, rather than indirectly reading stuff interpreted already by mainstream media. Two reasons. One is that you really don't know with a second-hand interpretation that what is missing and what is actually there and not there. And of course, like reading research is always interesting because if you think about like the researchers, they spend 6 months, a year doing something. And within 1 hour, you already get the essence of that they spent a year doing. It's such a bang for the buck, right? And
definitely. Do you get frustrated when you do, you're calling it second order thinkers, but do you get frustrated often when you've read the research and then you see the way it's portrayed? Was that part of your frustration? It sounds like it may have been.
I actually don't really see it as frustration. I see it as an opportunity. Like if everyone is not staying to the truth or like the world's hype up, naturally there is a group of reader who wants to find something that stay closer to the truth, that being more objective. And I do think that's where my niche comes in. And that's what the second order thinkers is about. That I realize there is not much work out there just directly translate the latest AI research into plain English and explain what is actually going on and without adding the hype element. But on the other hand, there's nothing to no one to blame for that hype element, because exactly those kind of terms like AI will damage your brain or AI will replace all the engineers, those kind of words that will attract audience. So it's also not their fault. It's just like, personally, I'm more interested in just finding the right balance, attract user, but attract readers, but also just stay objective.
Well, you're using a lot of research in each of your articles, which is great because I don't know if I'd have the time to wade through the things you're doing. So I'm just putting up the link now down the bottom so everyone can go and check out what you're working on, but we'll also put it in the text. But yeah, it is a gift what you're doing, because you're wading through so much research for those of us that are interested in what you're writing about.
Well, actually, it's more like a personal thing. Sorry saying that. When I'm reading the research or when I'm even writing, I don't really care what other people think. All I found is it's really enjoyable and sometimes exciting, sometimes chilling. Just read through what the latest research has found, especially later on if we got into the conversation of how human and AI co-evolve. It started to sound like some kind of science fiction. I'm not a fiction writer, just to be clear. But it's really exciting being in this era and have this opportunity to look at the most cutting edge research and what people found and how human got impacted by AI. So
Yeah.
it's more like a personal enjoyment first. And of course, I want to write something my readers also interested. But if I don't have this kind of interest and passion towards AI research, I don't think I can sustain this for long.
Yeah, no, it must take you a long time to write the articles. And I guess, I've watched a lot of your other interviews too, and we were just talking about this whole thing between AI and people. And you mentioned you kind of sat down and did a mind map about the way, you can explain it, but the way AI influences people and the way people are influencing AI. What was, you sat down and did that. What did you see? Why did you do it? And what did you see?
So I started to read, I think since 22, there started to be more and more how AI would impact human society research being released. And since then, I started to develop this interest to find those kind of research. But the more you read, the more you will realize that the impact is not one way, but it comes both ways. So if you think about how AI, especially large language model, being architect, you will realize that it requires a lot of training data. And it's exactly those training data that we feed to AI, created as it is. But as a user, a lot of time we'll also get affected by the technology we use. If we disregard AI, you will probably already heard the news of how social media has impacted our kids' brain, how social media has changed our behavior, that we have lower attention span, and all the same thing also happens to AI. But what's even more fascinating, because AI seem more magical to a lot of people, and the ways that it be able to mimic humans' interaction, a lot of people started to treat AI as friends, as even partners. And so they will naturally get affected much more by something parahuman than something you know so well. It's still a technology like social media. And
Yeah,
that's
I
how
mean, that plays into how we met, didn't we? We met through an AI bot that sounds incredibly human. And his name's Bordy. We'll give him a shout out. He's great. He has an Australian accent. Well, I don't know if he does anymore. I think he's changed his accent depending on where you ring. But
have you had a call with Bordy?
Yes, you haven't spoken to him? Oh, you might.
I think only once, but I really forgot what accent Bordy has.
Well, he started out with an Australian accent, but I hear he may have others now. But he's worth giving a ring to. I think he's an empathetic listener, which a lot of people don't learn to do. So I think he's a lot of times just repeating what you say, but people like that. It seems like a kindness.
It is, and it's what large language models are designed for.
Does it play back more when we start using them? Because a lot of the modeling was built off off the internet and how we speak to one another on the internet. Isn't that great? Is it? Like, I've always worried about that. It's almost, I've always wondered whether it's learning from the worst of us when it puts this stuff together. Because people, when you meet them in person, they're quite nice, but then you see what they write on your line and you're like, whoa, how did that go?
Well, there's a bit of a column A and a bit of column B. I guess it really depends on the training data and the team that trains AI. So that's why you will also see like different chatbot, like somewhat has different personality.
Yeah. Yep. And some are better at the speaking and some are better at the research. So one of your most quoted lines in what I've seen is AI agents are phenomenal brainstorm partners, but terrible decision makers. And as you know, as a product where we're making decision tools, I, kind of like that. So let's dig into that a little bit more. What do you mean they're great brainstorming partners, but terrible decision makers?
So I think then we need to distinguish the difference between like using AI as a source of input versus using AI as a decision maker. So as a source of input, it's great. What AI is best of is hallucination. I know how people perceive the word hallucination. So this is the thing, like it's the exact same feature that AI has, roughly speaking. This feature, like if you look at the negative side of this coin, is hallucination. But if you look at the positive side of this coin, is creativity. So when people see things that they want to see from AI, they think AI is so creative. But when they see things that they think AI is bullshitting, they say it's hallucination. It's the same thing. And AI is so good at generating like dozens, even hundreds of outcomes within a super short period of time compared to what human could achieve. So that's what makes AI a perfect input for whatever project that you're trying to accomplish. It would create dozens of ideas just for you to pick one or pick something that might inspire you to come up with something truly innovative. But if we talk about using AI as a decision maker, that means you don't do any decision, but whatever AI recommended, you would just follow it. So there are a few risks come to that. The one that's most immediate to the things that you're doing, the risk you're facing is whatever ideas you come out with, it's only going to be average. In the sense that AI really cannot innovate or create anything new because how it's trained and the output pattern it has, and especially the wrong incentives of those AI chatbots. So you will come to the point that AI was always trying to make you happy. So whatever recommendations that they give you, they kind of perceive is the wrong word, but because it sounds too human, but it would perceive what you would prefer and recommended the things that you're most likely to prefer, rather recommend the things that it's most beneficial to your initial goal. So that's why it's not going to be a great decision maker if you really want to achieve something on your own. Your incentive and AI's incentives is complete in a conflict.
Do you think there's room then for a creative bot, or is it because humans are able to put, like, AI is trained on the past or where we are, and humans can perceive nuance and they can create things out of their mind? Like, do you think there's an opportunity to create something that it will get there, or it's just not, the way it's designed is just not there now, or it could get there in the future?
So as it is, as how large language model is architected and trained, it wouldn't be creative as in how we think creative is. I think the most important reason is that AI doesn't think. Even all those AI model company that they created somewhat of confusing terms, they would say thinking model or the AI is reasoning. But the fact is AI doesn't think, AI doesn't reason. And because it doesn't understand the words, for example, innovation, it doesn't understand empathy. So it doesn't have the element of empathetic. It doesn't feel something when you describe a scene to it. That's why it's so hard. It's impossible for any large language model to do a true innovation as how human innovates. We innovate because we feel something of our world.
It's a beautiful way of putting it. I think that was kind of what Nick Cave said when he first came out with it, something along those lines as well. You know, the pain and passion he had to go through to write the lyrics is not something a computer can ever understand or feel.
Oh wow, that is truly beautiful. I really didn't say something this brilliant.
Oh, I think you're, you know, exactly along the same lines. I mean, he's been writing lyrics for years, so it's all right, Jing, that you didn't quite, you know, it was still lovely. So we see a lot of organizations rushing in to plug AI into decision making, especially to speed things up. What do you think the biggest risk in this automation is? Is it where it sits, where you're letting it sit, what decisions you're letting it make, or what's the biggest risk with this?
So before I answer this question, if
Yeah.
I am asked to help a CEO look at their AI implementation strategy, I will always ask this question first. What is the problem that you want to solve? A lot of people already failed at this step. But even they get to answer this question, then my next one, can you describe this question in detail? Like, how precisely can you articulate the problems you're trying to solve? And what is the exact outcome that you're trying to see? What is your hypothesis? And then most people I spoke with wouldn't be able to answer this question. I mean, it's not a trick question, and it's supposed to be hard. And this has to go back to my work in software. So my title was product lead, but it probably doesn't mean something to most people. The main tasks that I was responsible for is exactly to find out what is the problem that the company is trying to solve, the user is trying to solve, so we can provide the best solution to it. A lot of time we do not think about technology. So take a step back, like back to the questions you were asking. The biggest risk to defaulting to automation is to think about a solution without having a problem. So it's just like you thought, okay, I am going to buy a drill, but you don't even know what you're fixing. If we don't even talk about the ethical consequences, the legal responsibility a company need to bear, the biggest risk is to their own business. They are likely to waste the investment on something that they were hoped for.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. You're also talking about how AI flattens language, and you know that's another impact it can have. Why should businesses care about flattening language? I mean, it seems obvious to me, but I feel like you'll have a better answer.
I actually would like to hear your answer. What do you have in mind?
Oh, I think I'm a creative, so I also think it comes down to, you know, the beauty of language and creativity and all of that. You know, I can't imagine everything sounding the same, and I think it helps some people that struggle with writing. I think that's great if it can help lift language, but you've got to check it as well, don't you? Because it will take everything out of it if it lacks it. I find it lacks the nuance, and it's a very generic way of expressing yourself a lot of the time. And I think you can pick the people who are writing with AI and are lazy about it, who aren't checking what's put out there. And There's so many I am thrilled on LinkedIn. I just can't believe that many people can be thrilled on a daily basis.
Well, it's actually exactly like you said. And the output by large language model is by definition average because of the material it consumed, the material that the team used to train these language models are whatever that's popular on internet. And what is popular on internet a lot of time is average. And the more edgy material, the materials that gives you a spark and somewhat that makes you think of a new type of art, new types of creativity material, that isn't abundant enough. So by definition, it won't be the main material that is trained. So it wouldn't be the main output. So what I see, models speaking American English and trying to correct other English is only a phenomenon. What is also interesting, your question reminded me of research I read. So this group of researchers from Wharton, they want to find out if ChatGPT or any AI model is good with brainstorming, because a lot of people on LinkedIn was claiming, oh, we use AI for brainstorming. AI is great for creativity and brainstorming. So they want to find out if this is true. So what they did was they asked a few creative questions. For example, they ask, hey, can you help me repurpose unused household item? For example, help me repurpose broken garden hose. And so they put a lot of different AI side by side. And each AI will come up with like 5 to 10 options. And then you start to compare the options. You realize if you look at the answer from individual AI, you will think, oh, that's brilliant. I haven't thought about that. Oh, that's also smart. I haven't think about it. But if you put them together, you will realize the idea they came out was really similar. So garden hose, for example, they came out ideas like lawn sprinkler, water sprinkler, garden sprinkler. They are just like different terms in describing the exact same thing. So data-wise, they found that only 6%, in an extreme case, only 6% of those ideas from ChatGPTs were actually unique. So like it will have to come down to like how language model is built. But speaking English is a phenomenon. Flattening culture is another phenomenon. But generally speaking, ChatGPT or any AI chatbot won't be able to come out with anything original.
Was that the study you wrote about where they looked at all of that and then they looked at the best outcome, and the best outcome came when the human and the chat, that like you used a little bit of the AI for iteration? Or was that study? I was reading something about that.
So there were actually a few studies proving this how like AI and human as a team is the best for innovation. So probably what you mentioned was one of it. And this study from Wharton is another one. What's interesting is actually in different occasion, pure human team will be the most innovative as opposed to human and AI team or pure AI team. So it really depends on how familiar you are with AI, what is the workflow that you have with your team. Sometimes include AI's opinion may be good because it helps your team to think out of the box, outside of your profession. But there are times that you just know so much better than AI, then you should have some confidence in yourself and your own team. Just do it in like manual way. The old ways sometimes is actually the best.
And we've talked about kind of, you know, the gentrification of language, the trying to get things done faster, the efficiency trap, that, you know, human strengths are foresight, creativity, and empathy. What do you think out of all of this are you seeing businesses fall into most? Like, what, you know, when they're going for AI over people, is there something that really stands out about what you're seeing? Like, I mean, is it the efficiency trap? Is it what are people just jumping at? I mean, I think you kind of touched on it before, when they don't even know what they're trying to solve, they're just using it.
Yeah, so the risk in having the same ideas or same outcome is one, but sometimes having the same outcome is a good thing. It really depends on the industry and on the workflow. A lot of times you just want something the same. But then I will have a question: why would you use AI? Why don't you just use symbolic code rather than AI? Because AI also guarantees that they won't come up the same thing every time. That's another topic we can talk about later. But another potential failure is being efficient in the short term, but you have to pay back in the long run. There are actually already companies seeing this trend and they're trying to roll back their AI effort. You probably haven't seen this news. It's something one of my readers shared with me. So the news was saying that a content creator was hired exactly to help that company to reverse their AI effort, because whatever content was written by AI has such a poor quality they can't even use to release or to publish. So they have to hire a human to then come back, examine, and re-edit the effort, whatever AI created. So that actually add on an actual cost, not to mention the time that you've wasted just using AI to do experiments. Though not saying that you shouldn't use AI to do experiments, that's the opposite. But we can come to that later. But
well,
yeah,
I think
that is the risk.
When I've used it to code, and you know, I'm not a product manager like you were, so you wouldn't have. You come at things, you probably have a very good idea what you want to do, which is one of the things what product managers are great at. But I find if you don't, and I think it's the same with the writing, and when you're coding with it, if you don't have a really good sense of what you want, it will take you down the most random or generic path. And you're like, why, you know, I think you've got to really know what you want, because if you put it into their hands, you're not going to come up with a very good product.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I have to admit, when ChatGPT just roll out, a lot of time that I just get lost in a conversation with ChatGPT. I think a lot of us has this experience, and we lost the whole morning. We then finally realized by lunchtime, hey, I haven't complete anything. That's the risk if you're looking at implementing in a large scale within a company workflow.
I laughed at one of your interviews and I hadn't thought of it this way, but it is so obvious when you say it. You said, you know, about that thing getting lost and it doesn't give you what you need, and then you're doing it and you're iterating. You said, that's not good product design. And I was thinking, we've just, in a way, we've accepted it because we've been so wowed by it. And it wasn't until you kind of said that I went, yeah, it kind of does suck a lot of the time.
Yeah, no, and actually, to counter what you said, it is a great product design from the AI company, because they're doing such a phenomenal job in attracting your attention, in keeping you keep using their chatbot. So they've been doing a great job knowing how to keep you, knowing how to make you keep engaging with AI. It's good for them, but you haven't done your job for the last 4 hours.
It's funny. I mean, do you think that's too teething, you know, its early stages? And I do look like, you know, as somebody that does, you know, a bit of editing and has to use visual medium, I think it's come a long way with its visual mediums, a lot quicker than I thought it would. Do you think, you know, part of that problem with what it gives you, do you think that's a time thing? Like, you know, it'll get better with a bit more time?
Can you?
Or do you think it's in their design? You think it might be in their design?
You mean in visual design?
No, I'm sorry. I'm going back to like in visual design. I was like, oh my gosh, this is years off where it needs to be, but it's come a long way quickly. And do you think the way it's giving us answers, and we are sitting there for hours trying to get the right response with coding, it sends you in loops. Like it's infuriating at times. But I'm a cut and paste coder to some degree. Like I get a bit of it, but so it's my own fault. But do you think, it's just because it's in its infancy, or do you think it's in its design?
It's a really difficult question. I guess it really goes back to how it's designed. So if you think about, like, this is probably the roughest way to describe large language model. It's the predicting next word machine. It's great at predicting the next word. So regardless in coding or in content creation, that it's great at recognizing a pattern and knowing like what is the highest possibility that could come out next. So in the sense, it's hard to improve this predicting next word machine unless you started to give it some kind of a understanding of the world, understanding of humans feeling. I think understanding is the word, is that it's lack of this world model, lack of a genuine understanding. And until this happens, I don't think there would be much improvement. If you read more from like Gary Marcus, for example, you would see a lot of what he's been saying since even before ChatGPT came out is that it will only take us so far in scaling language model. And the next thing we really need to do is to make sure it genuinely has the thinking. Then we will still need to think about, maybe we combine it with symbolic AI. Maybe we start to think of how to make sure it also has a world model, has a genuine understanding. But until then, it will be hard.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of, with Wiser, we're looking at cognitive diversity as well. And in Western societies, the top of the cognitive tree are, one of two, 75% of one or two types, an achieving type. And then that cognitive person likes to find more of themselves because they enjoy being with themselves. And it slowly makes a homogenous kind of tree. And unless you understand, the 6 or 7 types, you're not protecting them. And I wonder, it just kind of thinks that homogeny, probably exists within those that are coding it as well. The homogenized type of person that's coding it, potentially, you're not getting enough of that diversity in who's actually in the room when they're coding or deciding.
And this is an interesting thing. Like, I do really look forward to AI evolve into the next level, because once it does, like, roll back a little bit, when you started to think about the science evolution in the last 100 or 200 years, you will start to see the most front-edge breakthrough are those breakthrough that combines different subjects. So for example, neural network was the kind of breakthrough that you combine like neurology with computer science. And that's why you have this breakthrough. And given AI is trained with so much knowledge, at some point, if it truly has the understanding, if it truly has the human kind of feeling, how much different breakthrough that it might have that no human could have in one single generation, because it has so much understanding of the subject. Unfortunately, right now, it just doesn't have that understanding.
Yeah, it becomes quite trippy to think about it, doesn't it? As I'm reading, the book on my bedside table is called The Soul, so we won't go there though. I don't know how much it can learn. So if you're an organization that's starting to explore AI, what's your advice? What should they Are they, we've talked about orgs that have handed over everything and have to roll it back. How would you tell them to start? Is it back to that? What do they want to achieve? What are they trying to achieve?
So can I start with what they shouldn't do?
Yeah, go on. That's always easy if you know what they shouldn't do. I like that. Yes.
So it was a viral post on Twitter at some point. So Shopify CEO, he released a letter addressing the whole company. Part of the letter, he said that a team shouldn't propose to hire more human resource unless they can justify why AI cannot do the job. It received a huge pushback, not just within the company, but also like went so viral, but not in a good way on Twitter. Like exactly this kind of policy isn't helping anyone because it only creates panic and it lowers your employees' morale. So with that out of the way, I think it's always the first principle. Okay, you need to know what is your desired outcome. And for that, you need to know what problem you're solving. You need to articulate what you want instead of what AI suggests. It's for both like C-levels and individuals. And then, of course, once you have a great definition of what problem you're solving, and you really believe that AI is the technology to go for, then start doing experiment. But like just take tiny steps, doing a lot of trial and error, see how they work the best with your workflow. Like there's no one size fit all solution for this.
No, I mean, as a startup founder, I feel like I wake up every day and try and do all the jobs very badly or whatever is left on my plate. And I must admit, AI is like a little co-pilot. It doesn't always get it, but I don't feel as lonely. Like I think it's a very lonely path being a founder of a startup when you're trying to work out how to spend the dollars the best and all the rest of it. I do find it makes the whole thing a lot less lonely. But you've got to understand it's not perfect.
Yeah, the really key thing is you know your goal, but also you need to understand the risk. Otherwise, I think, like you said, a lot of times that I just like threw a random question to AI. Why is my readers not growing, and why does the reader unsubscribe me? And then AI will give me some kind of recommendation, even though something I already know. But I feel better like after just prompting it and complaining to it a little bit.
Yeah, well, they say that I was listening to a podcast the other day. They say the biggest growing part, I think it was Mel Robbins actually, was saying the biggest growing area was I'm sending people to second order thinkers again, but so we can grow that. But she was saying the biggest growing part of it is therapy, but which is fine as long as a therapist is overseeing it, not, you're not just talking to your AI, because we've seen how poorly that can go when it's not monitored. All right, so let's talk about what decisions do you let AI make, and what wouldn't you let them make for you? A bit of fun here now.
I don't let AI make any decisions, but unfortunately, that is also not strictly true. There are just so many services out there that's already implementing narrow AI. So without you and I knowing it, AI is already making a lot of decisions for us. For example, when we apply for mortgage, that these kind of applications normally started by being filtered with some kind of automation, and AI is part of it. Or when you saw Amazon planning delivery route, that's one, or Amazon's recommendation, that's also done by AI. So even though I think what you were implying was what kind of decision we allow large language model chatbot to make for us, but with that like out of the way first, one thing is AI has already started to make a lot of decisions in our life. In terms of at least something I can control. I never let any chatbot make decisions for me. I think one thing is because I always trying to know what I want to achieve, set a quality bar. If it's below this quality, then I wouldn't adopt AI. The way to go about it is really slowly getting to know AI's limitations and the potential risk of using AI. Then you will become so familiar and knowing when to draw a line of not having AI to make a decision for you. But again, a lot of times it's no longer our decisions to not having AI there.
Yeah, I was even reading something about dating apps and how they're using AI. So AI is now, behind that recommendation engine and that matching. So
Yeah.
it,
You really can't avoid it.
no, it's in the background making decisions for us. So you're reading all this research, and people really should go and see how much research you put into the articles you write, because it's great. And you're kind of saying sometimes it sounds very sci-fi, the future. What are some of the things that you've just gone, oh wow, when you've read them?
Oh wow.
Yeah. Should I talk a little bit to try and give you a moment to think about that?
There are so many things. I don't know which one to choose. Yes, if you have anything in mind, yes, please.
No, I don't know. Well, I don't know. I think as we go back to it, it was just so wow to see it when it first came out. Like, it felt like it was as significant as anything, in tech that's ever been given to us. So
okay, I have one.
Yeah, all right, give it.
So I recently read a study, and it was talking about a phenomenon. Even they didn't use the term in the research, I called it AI enthusiasm paradox. So what the study initially wanted to find out was, who are those people who really enjoy using AI product and who already dive head down to AI product. So they sent out different surveys to 2,000 participants, and it came back. They started to analyze the data, and then they found out those who really love AI tend to have low literacy of AI. Doesn't mean that they aren't smart. They could be really smart in general, but they don't know much about AI. However, those who have high AI literacy, they tend to be less enjoying AI product and less hypey when it comes to AI service. So that's only a part of this survey. There is the second part. The second part was why those people really enjoy using AI, especially if they have lower AI literacy. And what they found out is those people who have low AI literacy, they seem the output from AI as somewhat magical. They saw the spark whenever AI come up with an image, with a video that can create infinite possibility. They have that wow element. So the people who really have doesn't know about the theory and the risk, they found that spark is really something that keep drawing them back to these AI products. So
they're dopamine hits, aren't they, in that sense?
Sorry?
They're getting dopamine hits, aren't they, in that sense? Like, they're being hit with that.
Yeah, I guess you can say that.
Well, I think I've read some. Didn't one of the articles you're writing about also that men use AI more than women? Is that right?
Yeah, that was one of the earlier articles I wrote. It was about adoption. This is another thing that's really interesting. So part of it, let me start with talking about the parts that was in the research and a part that was mostly my hypothesis. So what was on the research was, I think it was a research from a Norway team. They were comparing within that country if they had a few hundred developers, men and women, to see their habit of using AI. They found that even already divided to the ratio of the participants that they have, they normalized the data. Still, more men are likely to use AI. And what's even more is that with the men who use AI, they are more likely to pay for AI, as opposed to women who even use AI. They are more likely to use a basic version of AI rather than paying for it. And I find this fascinating. I think at the beginning, my hypothesis was likely wrong. I attributed to that there are less women study in STEM, so less women who ended up become a developer. But it wouldn't be a case if the researchers have already normalized the data. Then there will be another kind of elements that plays into it. Maybe women seeing paying for AI isn't really a priority in their work or in their daily life. They have something more important to pay for, whereas men have less desire out there, maybe less interested in shopping, so they thought they pay for technology. But I don't know, it's only a hypothesis, and there is not much research around like why women tend to not pay for AI and men tend to pay for AI.
And is there a country that's doing more research than others? Like, where are you finding the most interesting research coming from? Because also, I guess Western view and culture is one thing. You're looking across the globe. What are some interesting things that you're seeing? Where's the research coming from? What are some of the differences you're seeing, I think, is what I'm trying to get at.
So unfortunately, it's quite imbalanced. Most good research from US labs. I do see research from Europe, but it's even lesser with the rest of the world.
Yeah, right. But China's catching up very fast with what they're building.
Yes, I do see research from China from time to time, but not as often as research in US lab. I think also the focus in China might be different. I'm not Chinese, so it's hard for me to say. My understanding is they focus much more in robotic and in those kind of automation rather than like the large language model themselves, even they do have some impressive AI model engineers in China.
Yeah, I'm reading the geography of thought too at the moment, and just the way the different Western and Eastern societies think. It'll be interesting to see how the different bots are trained.
Oh yeah, it's going to be really different. And I was speaking with a researcher the other day. They were the one who came out with another interesting research about actually human prefer AI generated outcome, but that's another story. What was interesting is different culture will actually embed different patterns when they train AI. So if most of us use, I think it's really similar to what we were talking about like why AI is slowly turning our speaking language into American English. If we mostly use AI that's from the US, we will also culturally be influenced by those AI. And the more that happens, then we will enter into a feedback loop that more and more content would be written in American English, and the terms or the scenarios adopted of American culture. And in the end, I guess the world will be more homogenized than what it is now.
Do you think that values play into it as well? Like, is it are there values, people's values being put into AI when they're building it?
There would be, definitely. But because it's a really good automated predicting machine, it's predicting the most likely outcome. So even there are individual value put in there, they are more a minimum set of data rather than a majority set of data. So if you think about most likely outcome, it will always go towards the majority set of data. So that's where the marginalization comes in.
Yeah, we use AI to talk about insights that we see in decision teams, and in theory, we could turn on the AI to find the right people for every decision, but we've used algorithms because we're testing both at the same time, because I feel like once you flick that switch, it's hard to go backwards out of it. And then you have to be pretty sure about the inputs you've given it, because even now, after a couple of years of training the models around the decision profiles, sometimes it does hallucinate in the negative sense from my perspective, not the positive hallucinations.
Yeah, so we talked about that there are already a lot of decisions made by AI. Some of them are actually really, really good use cases. For example, using AI to help doctor diagnose disease, or I'm so bad at recognizing where to go. So even in London, I have to carry my phone around and always following Google Maps instruction. I have no human agency when it comes to recognizing road. But it's really good at directing me to the right spot, even though you can't go very accurate. But one thing is that when it comes to making decisions that even tiny bit related to human principles, to ethics, then it becomes really, really dangerous. The latest research I read, it was using AI to examine different CVs. So it examines I think a few hundred sets of CVs, and with all the rest of the CV remain the same. They only change one thing: the first name of the person. So the first name of the person, they use African male, African female, white female. I think the more of this research you read, the more you could guess what's the likely outcome. So once they feed all those different names CV into AI, the chances that male African got picked by a job is 0. And the chances that AI picked a white male for a job is so much higher. And that's really where the inequality comes in. And that's why I'm saying we shouldn't let AI to make these kind of decisions that even a little bit involve more humanity side of things. Because the more we do it, the likelihood is that the less we have the empathy toward others, and we just offload these kind of ethical decisions to a machine, and in return, the less humane that we will be as a human.
It's scary from that perspective. I did hear about a recruiting agency using it and that kind of outcome happening. And I guess, we've seen tech fail so many times, that when the Apple Watch launches, it doesn't work on people with darker skin. Who on earth was in the room when they were testing that stuff? So, and you know what, the thing that worries me a little bit is about, innovation, and we know that the best things come from the edges. And if you start homogenizing everything and you start doing that, you start to lose that innovation element and pushing the boundaries, because it's the people that sit on the edges where it comes from.
Yeah, but there's the other side of the story, is that given where we are, we also kind of have to use AI these days. Probably go back to the question that you asked 20 minutes ago, which was the most chilling AI research that I've read recently. This is probably the one. After I just 10 minutes skimming through the research, I decided to reach out to the researchers, which I'm going to have an interview with them on Tuesday. And I reached out to all my journalist friends, and they're all really happy to quote me and even to work with me on an article. So it can tell you how serious this matter is. The research team wanted to find out if they put 2 of the really similar product description in front of AI, one produced by human, one produced by AI. Which one would AI recommend? And so they came up with a few examples. One example is product recommendation. One is movie recommendation, and the other one is academic research recommendation. So from the product recommendation, it was the most obvious in the result that AI always prefer result recommendation done by AI. AI doesn't prefer context that's written by human. So if you take a step back and you have a deeper think of the implication of this, it's really scary. There are two parts of the implication here. One is on the human level. For those who, even in a developed country, lives in a poor community, have no chance to access AI, their access to better school, to apply a mortgage, to apply for a job, because they never work with AI, they have little chance to use AI. The chance when they succeed in society will become smaller and smaller because the world is slowly taken over by AI making decisions. That's
so
one.
AI is like humans. It likes itself, likes itself type. Wow, gosh,
Yes.
that is chilling.
And second part is like this implication is bigger, but further down the way is the more of the company started to use AI, the more they will prefer each other. So the decision they make will always towards this decision that AI deem correct.
Wow. Well, that's quite a note to leave us on tonight, isn't it? Or your morning, my night, as we sit on opposite sides of the world.
I hope you don't have nightmare tonight.
Yeah, I might. My brain's taken over by AI. Maybe it'll be relief for me. What about, is there one last comment you want to make on whether it be where AI is today or tomorrow, or people? Well, our topic tonight was, people and versus AI, or humans versus AI. What is there any one last thing you would? I mean, you've given us so many great examples, and that last one's like, wow.
So if any takeaway, probably AI literacy. I think it's the most important thing that we need to start drilling into a lot of people, especially people who are in the position to make decisions. If you think about policymakers or manager in a company or teachers in the school. So how to train AI literacy? You don't need to code. You don't need to learn Python since today. But you just need to know, like, let's say 3 things. One is that you need to have the right mental model. You need to know basic that LLMs are autocomplete engines. They predict the next token, but they do not know the truth. Second is the structural risks that comes with AI architecture. And then the third is, what is your plan B when you can't use AI, and where the accountability sits? Knowing these 3 things will help you goes a long way when you start using LLM or thinking using LLM in integrating your company workflow.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And I guess a lot of, one last thing, might be 100 one last things. No, I'm serious. One last thing. almost one last thing. I guess a lot of people get stuck on, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to, this job will go here, this job will go there. And I've heard you speak on this a little bit. What do you say to the human job loss and AI? I know what you say, but I want to hear you.
A few things, like, one is, if you asked me the same question a few months back, I would say no human will lose job to AI. But now I think back, I think that statement itself is flawed. So I want to correct that statement, is that there are human lose job because of the term of AI, not because of the fact of AI. So a lot of times, like, you will see tech company overhired or overinvested. It's natural that very often these tech company need to like restructure the internal team. So AI, in a way, is an easy scapegoat. So you say, because AI can do a lot of things, so AI will replace your job, so we stop hiring, we need to reorganize it. That's one thing. But a lot of times when you start to understand what AI can actually do, and I do have a huge network of CTOs that I work with, you will realize that AI actually can't completely replace developers. AI do a good enough job. But for anyone who knows a little bit of software development, you will know coding is only 20 to 30% of the job. The rest is maintenance, is architecture, is to know how to build a good security framework so for your software to run proper. Only a tiny bit of the development is about coding. So no, AI will not replace developer, not when it still doesn't know things, doesn't think, and doesn't have the truth of the world. That's one side of the story. The other side, and it's something that I don't think anyone has a good solution, because even though LLM that doesn't have the truth, doesn't have the world model, it can already do a lot of things basic. But sometimes for someone who doesn't know anything, for example, I'm a non-native speaker, so even when I'm trying to find new words, AI can still find a proper word for me to describe a phenomenon much better than I could. So when we look at those things that interns typically do, you will realize a lot of time, if you have a senior staff indicating AI to do something, it would be 100 times better than interns. So you start to see, like, in a lot of countries, graduates don't get the job as easy as used to. A lot of time they need to submit hundreds, even thousands of CV for them to get hired to one job, a very low paid job. And it's something that I will urge people to pay attention to, but there is no good solution to it. Because yes, AI could do better than them, but if you don't train them, you don't have future employees.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? If you're not investing in them, you won't have them when you need them at that higher position.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is a paradox itself.
It is a paradox in itself. It's going to be interesting to watch. Jing, thank you for joining us and helping us think more deeply about what it means to stay human in the way we create and think. And everybody needs to go and read her articles at Second Order Thinkers, which I will pop back up now. And if you're building systems or making decisions that are trying to improve your business, we're always happy to chat about these things. So we love people and we love AI, but it's great to think about how to use both of them well, isn't it? And thanks so much for joining us, Jing. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks again for having me, Kylee.
No worries. Have a good day.
You too. Have a great